Hi, I'm Imogen Trolander. Today we're here visiting with Valeska Appleberry. And let's get the name.
Valeska Becker Appleberry.
That's right. We like to have people know our family names, although you've been an Appleberry much longer than,
that's right.
than you were a Becker. A lot of people in Yellow Springs know Valeska because she started the Nature Montessori School for preschool children. And so lots of people know about her. Valeska, why did you come to Yellow Springs? I know you weren't born in Greene County.
No, I was born in Manhattan, New York City. And a girl came to our school from Antioch College, a co-op, and told us all about Antioch. I knew instantly that was where I had to go.
Oh,
because
really?
My aunts that were going to put me through college, bless their hearts, thought I'd go to Smith or Wellesley or some of those places, you know. But no, I wanted to go to Antioch because it fitted everything I required. It was small, it was progressive, it was co-ed, it had this wonderful co-op system, and the progressive school I was in was like that, you see, so it would be a logical follow. Mother thought it was terrible. I was going, why, when I lived 2 doors from Barnard College, I want to go out in the sticks?
Well, of course, not many people knew about Antioch. It didn't have the national reputation.
Well, I heard about it before that because Charles Francis Potter, who was a Unitarian minister, I'm kind of a birthright Unitarian, left and went to Antioch to be Mr. Morgan's, secretary that raised money.
Oh, a fundraiser.
Yeah, he was an assistant to
Okay.
Mr. Morgan. So I heard about it from 2 sources.
Then you were born on Manhattan Island.
I was born on Sal Street near Columbia University, and that old building is still there. And right down the street from it, my brother, my twin brother, lives in a high-rise apartment on the same street.
He does. He stayed in
Yes.
his where he was.
Yes, he has
born,
remained a New Yorker.
Yes, but you came here, and you told me that you thought you had a privileged childhood. What does that mean?
Very.
What do you think is a privileged
childhood? Nowadays,
childhood?
a lot of people think you're in denial if you had a happy childhood and don't have a lot of horrible memories. Well, I think they're finally giving up and deciding I must have had a happy childhood because all I can remember is sheer joy and bliss. Our family, I had 2 brothers and me, and my mother and father. Father was a professional musician, pianist, composer, etc., and mother was an artist who gave up her art, incidentally, like women did, you know, to marry father and support him and all that.
To support him, or to
no, I mean to
support
be the good wife and make things
be
possible.
the homemaking
That's
wife.
right. Yes. So unfortunately, we children never knew much about her art except that we have her lovely pictures. It was a real the kind of thing that Dan Quayle would probably love.
He would. Well,
Family
you had
values,
two,
you know.
but it was privileged.
It was,
I thought,
oh,
from
yes.
another point of view.
Yes, it was. You see, Father, being a professional, he was a very well-known musician. They used to call him the best music teacher in all of the United States. He would get tickets from all the, like Steinway Sons, he was with them for 75 years, to all the concerts, everything. And since he would swap with anybody that wanted piano lessons, like I got dancing, we got dancing lessons because he gave piano lessons to the teacher. And we got singing lessons because he gave piano lessons to the teacher's daughter, etc. So we didn't realize that we had the privilege of a very rich family, but we didn't realize that because it all came free.
Yeah.
Many a concert, oh yes.
All the
yes.
things, you mean all the things that you were doing, the lessons you took, you didn't have to pay for them. It was a barter system between your father and other people. But that is what you consider.
And the big thing is the family was so great. We did things together. We didn't see much of Father, of course, because he was very busy. He was teaching or composing, or he started all kinds of things like the music club and so forth. And he used to do judging and all that. So we didn't see much of him, but when he was home, he would always like go for a walk with us on Sunday and so forth. And of course, Mother was always there. But we did things together. When we sat down, we'd all hold hands before we ate.
Well,
Not say a grace, but
yeah.
hold hands. And I remember family conversations at the table, just always laughter. Father loved to tell funny puns and that kind of thing.
So your family didn't have an economic struggle, and
no,
they
yes
did
and
have.
no. Father,
you were never hungry.
Oh no, no. Father had up and down years, because who gives up piano lessons when the times are harder? You see. But of course, we children never knew it, because we still had all those great things.
Yes.
And the Manhattan played a part. The museums, the park. You can do an awful lot of things in Manhattan free. And so and the family would play games together. We played a lot of anagrams and that sort of thing. And we went to the country and took walks in the country, and I remember the whole family walking in the moonlight, you know. It was just a very happy childhood. One reason being that my brother and I had a twin. And when you have a twin, a girl can do things more than she ever could without. Like Mother would let us at age 5 or so roam the city. We knew every square inch of Manhattan. Gene, we would go down to the Hudson River. I watched the George Washington Bridge being built while we picked garnets.
Well, that sounds very good. Now, let's get on to the high school part. You went to a...
Mother wheedled this progressive high school, Birchwathen School, which is still there, into giving us my brother and me and my younger brother, full scholarships. So the school had either very rich children or children like us on scholarship. And it was a progressive school in the sense that it was just very different. It was small brownstone buildings backing up to each other. And I came to see the headquarters, and they had colonial furniture, and everything was very small because the school grew each year, you see. So when I graduated, I was in the first graduating class. I came in 7th grade, and there were 7 of us.
Oh, so it was a very small. And what do you think would make a progressive school? What was, in the 1920s, what did people look at and say, that makes it a progressive school?
Well, I'll tell you, the contrast. The public school I went to before that, on 45th Street, was one of those old dungeons, like an up-and-down staircase, where the 3rd grade teacher, if she saw a paper, would say, pick up the floor, Goyles. And, you know, very rigid. And I enjoyed it because I always loved school my whole life. I still love to read and learn.
You were quite academically able?
Yes, I was quite academically able, and so I did very well. And this school had you get your hands on everything. We had art every day of the week, and when you went to a museum, you enjoyed it, because I had done an etching. I had done 2 kinds of etching. I had tried every medium. And so for my own self, they really gave you experience.
Yeah. So that was one of the...
We went and watched books being made. We went to concerts. We did all kinds of things.
A key part of that would be that a progressive school in the 20s was that the children were taken out of the school and allowed to see the community, be part of that.
Yes.
And when they were in the school, they were doing things rather than reading about it.
And a very informal, wonderful atmosphere. Like the chorus was everybody. You didn't have to apply to be in the chorus. And lots of plays. I remember I was Martha Washington.
So then another aspect might be the feeling of community that they had in that school.
Yes, yes. Everybody really, especially of course my small high school class, we did everything together outside school too.
And I think that those are still qualities that people look for these days for their children.
Yes.
Schools that would have those factors about them. Yeah.
Actually, quite a lot of the atmosphere at the Antioch School had.
Yes, yes, they do have that same philosophy that the children do rather than just read about it or be told about it. Well, then you came to Yellow Springs and went through school during the Depression. Now, for you, because your aunts were paying your tuition, I don't suppose the Depression, I know the Depression didn't have the kind of quality about it that it did for some people, but what are some of the things that you remember about the 30s, about the Depression in this country, when men marched in Washington.
Well, actually, the first inkling was I had a job 3 summers up in Maine, wanting to earn money to go to college, and this millionaire who would always leave $1 under my cup, no matter what he got, and then after the Depression and the crash, he said, "I'm sorry, I can only leave you 50 cents now." He'd been reduced from his mansion to an upper fancy.
So he had to cut down his
so
tip.
I realized things are different. But you know, in a sense, it's amazing. I was so protected from it because all our things went on as usual. My father still got lessons. We didn't go to quite as many things maybe, but when I came to Antioch, of course, I felt it. Because I came to Antioch in '31, there were just a few hundred students, no cars to speak of, maybe 5 cars on all of campus, and nothing. They didn't have the swimming pool or anything like that. And your idea of a date was just go for a walk in the Glen or something. And a lot of students were very hard up. I was lucky. I was being paid for by the SAD.
Now, it was at Antioch that you met your husband to be.
Yeah, my last year, he was graduating. I mean, my first year, he was graduating, and I went to the prom with him. And so actually, I just saw him that once before he graduated. And after that, for 5 years, it was always just, he'd come down from Detroit, where he worked at Henry Ford's, or whatever.
So then.
So all through Antioch, I knew other people.
Yes. Now you did marry, and you decided, you and Linton, to live in the country.
Yes, the first year we were.
Why did you decide that?
Well,
you were a city girl.
Well, yes,
And
the
he was
first
a
year.
city
Well,
boy.
actually, when I came to Antioch, to Yellow Springs, I wrote back to Mother, and it was like being in the country because then
Yes,
we didn't have all this development. And I said, "Oh, Mother," and the small town intrigued me, and then of course some of my co-op jobs.
Yes.
But it was. We were 1 year here. You see, he was helping Chatterjee in the social science department. But we were teaching co-ops, and we decided we'd rather be a co-op. You see, so we went to,
Yes,
to 5.5 years we had a co-op house there.
And then why did you decide to go into a rural life? Because
well, we read, as Willis O'Connor mentioned on her talk, Ralph Borsodi, Flight from the City, and his description of how much it could mean to live in the country and grow your own, and how much it paid and so forth. And I loved the country so as a child when we go in the summertime. To me, the country was a place rich people got to go.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
You didn't know farmers.
If Father
poor
had a lot
farmers.
of lessons, we could go and stay a month somewhere. Otherwise, we'd stay maybe 2 weeks. So to me, it was a privileged place. So this book of Borsodi, several of his, really intrigued us. And we realized that really the country was where we wanted to grow kids. That for a family, it was.
Oh, you were interested in.
It seemed well. We wanted to
children.
be self-sufficient, like he said. You see, and I wasn't sure. I was a little teary about it because I've never lived in the country, and Linton grew up in a small town. So this Dr. Hirschberger said, "I have an old log cabin, 150-year-old log cabin. Would you like to spend a year there?" So we went and lived for a year in this log cabin, 4 bare walls, and nothing else. He finally dug water in. And that was the most rugged year of my life, but also one of the happiest. Ricky was 4 by that time, and the baby was 6 months old in a basket still because she was tiny. And we really decided we would love to live in the country.
Okay. Now, what are some of the things that drew you there? I knew you had a garden and you had a cow and chickens and a horse, but what did you think your children were going to get in the country that they wouldn't get in the city like you had been?
Good health, basic attitudes,
about what?
attitudes toward life, grassroots experiences that you get when you take help with animals and dig in the garden and so forth, go in the woods. And Ernie Morgan had this house in the country. We knew he wasn't living.
So those are the things that you were looking for.
Yeah, we really wanted
your
to homestead,
children,
and we wanted simple living
Yeah.
and self-sufficiency.
Now, which you were working toward. I realize, and I suppose maybe you do, that Hugh Taylor Birch, who's such a big part of Yellow Springs, gave faculty members, if they wanted it, 3 acres
Yeah.
here in Birch Tract.
Yeah,
And his was the same attitude of, it wasn't really to any values about living in the country, except that you could have a garden and you could eat. And it
Yes.
was based on the hunger during the Depression
Exactly.
that many people felt. And so now we have this lovely part of Yellow Springs, which Hugh Taylor Birch, his dream was to have it all in small farms,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
isn't.
No.
It's in houses.
Well, ours
and-
was, and of course, we had 9 acres. We have about 9.5 acres.
Yes, and you really did manage to
And
feed
we
the
had
family.
cows and chickens and bees and millions of cats and dogs, and
Yeah.
and a big, the pasture and everything, of course,
Mhm.
and a big garden, and we did a lot of canning, and we were really good, because we've been very good at not making money. That's
Was
what
that deliberate?
Yeah, well, we always seem to be different about
Or
everything
did
we
you
do.
just get into bad situations?
No, we just
that
didn't
weren't-
choose things that make you money. You know, Linton worked at the bookplate company when we first came, and there was very low pay there. And then, I forget what happened, he moved or something. And anyway, in the times that were up and down, like down to $10 a week and that sort of thing, it didn't matter. It didn't matter, because we
Why?
had our
I mean-
food, we had the
Oh,
children.
because you had a garden.
We had good health. The Fells
Mhm.
people told me my children were the healthiest children in all of Yellow Springs.
Mhm.
And it was what we wanted. See, that was the
Mhm.
thing. We weren't after a lot of money.
You weren't after
we weren't-
giving your children the lessons that you got, the
We felt
singing
that
and
the
dancing.
grassroots
and-
experiences, well,
were
I
more
did feel
important.
badly about that. If we had had more money,
Mhm.
I regret especially they're not going to kindergarten or
Mhm.
having what I knew from
Mhm.
Montessori. I really regret that. But they did have other things.
Mhm.
It has showed since.
So but anyway, that was something you deliberately, you
Oh,
included
yes.
deliberately.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there
Yes.
were other things during your life where you took the other path. You
Yeah.
took a
I'm
different
very good at taking the other
path.
path.
And one was being very active in the co-op movement, although
Yes.
in the 30s,
Uh-huh.
we remember back to the 30s, there was socialism, there was lots of co-ops,
Yes.
there was lots of trying to make it
That's
better.
right, that's
It-
right.
it wasn't-
Well,
it
we
wasn't,
were good friends with Ernie and Elizabeth,
it
of course,
wasn't
they were
tremendously,
socialists and they believed in all that.
Wasn't tremendously radical
No,
to
we
be a
were never
co-op.
activists in the sense of going into like Ernie and Elizabeth did, you know, the singing and the going out places. I never had
Organizing,
demonstrations or anything
organizing
like
that,
that. Yeah,
yes.
we preferred to just live it.
Yes,
you
and
know,
so you
To
did.
be what we believed in.
Yes. And then you and Linton wrote your own wedding vows, which
Oh,
in the
yeah,
30s,
oh, yeah.
that wasn't exactly.
No, it wasn't done very much.
No.
This Charles Francis Potter that came to Antioch started the American Humanist Society. And so when we got married, we decided we'd like to have Dr. Potter marry us. So Linton came to New York City. I had a co-op job at Life magazine, so I was in New York. And so we just, you know, it's a beautiful ceremony. We have it written up. And my father played his music, and my cousin, who was a fine violinist, played the violin romanza. It was just with a few people in his studio. When I think what people spend on weddings nowadays,
Yes,
mine didn't
yes.
cost anything.
But it was really very
But it
different
was
and very
beautiful. I wasn't going to wear
tailored.
any wedding dress, so I have diamond rings. So I bought a nice velvet evening gown and wore that, which I wore at Antioch afterwards. It was really beautiful.
Yes. And then you, when you were a student at Antioch, you encouraged the students to have a dance where the women would ask a partner
My
rather.
professor Lerber, he said, "You're crazy." I didn't like it that the girls would sit home crying a lot of them because they didn't have a date to the prom. So I got permission to get up in the assembly. You know, everybody had to go to assembly in those days, one day, and say that the girls didn't really think it was right that they couldn't take someone. So we thought at least once at prom, a division, we should be able to do the dating only. No boys could ask for a date. So they set that up. So I kind of broke in there.
Yeah, it reminds me of those Daisy May dances that
Oh,
I was
yeah.
part of in the 30s too.
Oh, yeah.
Another part is that you you talked to a local doctor about childbirth? And,
oh, yes.
And that was...
Yes. Jane Morgan read a book by Stanley Dick Reed, I think that's his name, about childbirth, and I thought that was great. I had the 3 children, and the first one had been a horrible birth, and the second one premature, and this time I decided on the 4th one that I'd like to try this natural birth. So I just told him I'm going to do it. I said, I don't know if you want it, but that's what I'm going to do. And I never did any of they didn't have classes or breathing or anything. I just did what he said to relax and so forth. So Brian was born up at the community, literally with no pain. Now, if you've ever been in a, what do you call it, tug of war, you go like that. But it isn't pain, it is high stress. Yeah, so stress, all the time he's being born, I just sat and talked to Dr. Burley and said, wait a minute, I got to stop and have
another contraction.
It was marvelous. It makes you want to have another one right away. So I got up after, I said, I know supper's at 4:30, get me up there. So,
and you were ready to eat supper.
I was ready. I was ready.
Because you hadn't
I just had an afternoon of hard work.
You hadn't had any
and he was
drugs.
so healthy. Oh, of course, some people feel that makes for a healthier baby.
Child, oh yes.
Yeah.
They don't need to be drugged when they're brought into
so
the
my
world.
5th child was, of course, the same, and then I was 41. So it was a little bit harder because I was a little bit older, but it was still a very good birth.
And then Linton was the homemaker while you worked outside the home. That's another place. And this was in the 50s and the 60s.
We were really off. Now
it was pretty
early.
early.
That was pretty unusual. And I know we got a lot of criticism. You hear it indirectly, but,
but
you can tell. In fact, our family was more open about it. Linton's sister or brother.
Yes, families generally.
Oh, yeah. She said, what's the matter with Linton? He's got all those wonderful brains. Why doesn't he? He could be rich and take care of you. What does he do like that? I said, we're doing that by choice.
Yeah.
And we didn't believe that children should not have a parent at home. If he worked, I didn't. If I worked, he didn't.
And you enjoyed working outside the home?
Yes.
Also,
and he wasn't just sitting in a chair. He used his tractor to plow.
Well, he had 5 kids.
Well, and he had all the farm work.
Yes,
you know,
the garden.
And also doing it for other people. Yeah.
And another way that a different path was that you weren't that interested in homemaking. You seem.
Let's be honest, I wasn't a very good housekeeper.
Yeah. Your mother didn't teach you how to keep house?
Well, you know, Mother was funny. That was different too. My brothers did all the heavy work. I don't know. I wish I knew because I could have used it. She buttered them up. She'd say, "Oh, that's for men's work," and she'd have them scrubbing the floor and feeling good about it. To this day, my twin brother does all his wife's housework. He says she hates it and I don't, so why not?
Well, isn't that that's
that's a great time.
Isn't caught up in stereotypes. Oh boy. Well, you did have a lot of out of the home experiences, work experiences. Let me see if I can tell you some. You worked for Life magazine for a year in New York City. I was a researcher.
I went out with the photographers and got the story while they got the picture.
Okay, and you were working in the co-op that you and Linton were in Dayton.
5.5 years we had a co-op.
And then you worked in the Morgan co-op here in Yellow Springs.
5.5 years I was manager of the Morgan co-op.
Yes, then you taught school at the Vail School.
I was one of the 3 that started the
And what about Enon schools?
That was where I first went back into public school teaching.
Okay, and then Beaver Creek
and because of that, I needed more courses to get my renewal, so I got interested in going on to get my master's.
And you also taught the Montessori School in Dayton for a while?
Yeah, you intern, for a year after you take it.
You sold the Encyclopedia Britannica
I
from
sold
house to
for
house?
a year and a half. No, you never do that from house to house. You go only by appointment. And it's great because you see husband and wife. It has to be both. And I got to know all these wonderful homes. Big, rich home, Not a magazine is, well, you'd go into these fancy houses.
Where? In
Middletown? All of them. I was in Middletown, Cincinnati, Lebanon, finally up in Springfield. They won't let you be in your own hometown. Incidentally, Britannica was where I broke the back again.
Oh, really?
Britannica had never had a woman salesman.
Oh.
And I snuck in the back door when I asked to be a salesman, the young person who came out to me, he said, "Oh no, I'm sorry."
Really?
See, he didn't know I was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decided to sneak me some of his jobs, and I made so much money he couldn't admit anymore that he was doing all that, so they had to take me in.
Oh, so you had that experience too.
And I found out why they didn't want to do that, because salesmen apparently at that time were quite good at going after the women, so I had to deal with that.
With sexual harassment
Yeah,
on the job.
yeah.
Well, and then
But it was a wonderful job.
yes, and then you, of course, you ended your career with opening a school on your property.
Oh, yeah.
And you had gotten your master's degree, and you'd gotten special training to be a Montessori teacher. And that was in, what, 1969? When
Something like that,
when you
yes.
opened your school, and you were in your mid-50s.
Right on our property,
Yes.
a few feet away from home.
You had the building built.
Well, the idea of it being a nature school, meaning in the country, not nature where you go out and teach nature, but to, again,
To be in nature, to be in it.
Experience it, yes.
And
I
so
think
tell us a little bit about that
well,
school.
I really think it was the happiest years of my life. It was
Oh,
there
really?
13. It
Oh.
really was. You know, to be in a job where you believe in what you're doing,
Mhm.
you feel you're accomplishing something,
Mhm.
you know, you're not doing any harm to anybody,
Mhm.
is just wonderful. I was, even the other teachers felt that way. I would sit on the deck with the children, and Kathy Monahan would say, you know, it also makes you feel guilty earning any money for this. It's such fun.
But you did earn some money.
Very little. I never
didn't-
made much. Well, I didn't want to have only rich children. So
Well,
we didn't charge like the other schools.
Well, there
You see?
are different ways to do that,
Yeah,
sliding scale and whatnot.
Yeah, but we charged.
You were a private
we
school.
wanted to, yes,
And-
uh-huh.
And so you did it that way.
And also, I wanted it to be pure. I'm a perfectionist, and I wanted it to be pure. And if
What
you have
does
a
that
board,
mean?
well, if you want to have a board of directors, and all of a sudden everybody else is telling you what to do, you know? And I wanted it to have the true spirit of Montessori with no interference, and that it should be not rigid Montessori, the way some of the old schools are, but Montessori in her spirit, which was, she was a Catholic, you know, and she had this beautiful vision of a child as a being to be treasured and helped brought out. And the idea of teaching, dealing with children, the true respect for them, and
You
it's
felt
just
that you
a
got,
beautiful thing.
you could manage this better by being a private owner of the school rather
Yes.
than by making the
That's
school a
right.
nonprofit
That's
group
right.
and
That's
pay
right.
yourself and
Yeah,
have
I
a board
didn't
of
want-
directors.
Yeah, no, I didn't want any of
Yeah.
that. I wanted to be exactly right.
How you wanted it.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was known all over the United States.
Really?
I gave my lectures and a slideshow to the national seminars. I was the only one they ever asked to give my slideshow about my school. And the national director came to me one time after seeing the school. He said, "Valeska, you make me wish I could go back and teach."
Oh my, that's a high compliment.
And John Holt said, "I envy you," when he came to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was 13 years that you had that school about, yeah.
Yes, wonderfully. I still dream teaching.
Oh, really?
I do.
When you're dreaming,
I'm
it's
in
a
the classroom.
theater in the classroom.
Well, we emphasized, I did so many things differently. I always seem to do things about 50 years ahead of the times, you know. I invited the grandparents. I invited alumni. Any alumni could come and visit anytime he wanted to, and you'd be amazed at how many of them did. So we always tried to include, I did a lot of work with parents. I said, if you're going to have the child
Had
here.
parent groups, did you?
Oh, yes,
Mhm.
yes. They had to meet for 8 weeks when they first came, 6 or 8 weeks. All husband and wife. Of course, nowadays you might have trouble getting husband and wife. And I
Really?
put them through the whole course of Montessori so they'd understand it, have consistency at home.
So
Yeah.
they could do some
Oh,
things at
yes.
home that were
Yeah,
the
one of the
same.
fathers said, "Why didn't you tell me it would change in the meat so much?"
Really? And it did change?
They started doing everything different in their home.
And so
Yeah,
it was really a happy...
And to this day, they come back.
Hmm.
Just recently, I had somebody come back, hadn't seen for, they keep coming back.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, you did close it. You didn't
Yes,
sell it to somebody
well, when I
else
got
to
to be
do it.
70, I couldn't take it physically because I had a really bad hip. I had to have a hip replacement. And I decided I just needed, I just couldn't do it. And I couldn't find anybody to take it over, because the true spirit of it, being part of nature, I couldn't, I had interns, you see, I taught them. And they did so well that they all had their own schools and were highly successful. So all my great people that I would have turned to weren't available. So I just decided to close it. And I've been very active since, like they say, you know, you wonder how you ever had time to work.
Yes, when you're retired, you have an active retirement.
Yeah.
But instead of, so the school went into another phase of its life.
Well, the way Nancy Ramba, she started the American Montessori Society, put it. She said, Valeska, Montessori isn't a contribution to you, you're a contribution to Montessori. She said, most people think you have to stick to Montessori and you do everything, exercise. She said, Montessori would be here right with the latest. She was a person who felt you should always improve yourself. She said, if you want the child to be good, work on yourself. Your own spiritual development. That is first.
So
that was unusual things.
Yeah, that was just a really important part of your life. That
it really was.
Those years.
Yeah, it was kind of hard on Linton, I think, because it was 24-hour a day kind of thing, you know. I was home making materials.
How long was it open though?
Well,
I mean, it was open
years.
from 8:30 in the morning or 9?
Oh, we had 2 sessions.
Oh, you had a morning and afternoon session?
And an afternoon session, yeah. And in those early days when there were so many children, we'd have 30 in the morning, 30 in the afternoon.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So materials for all those children,
Yeah.
that was a 24-hour day.
Yeah.
So now you've seen a lot and done a lot. And what do you think, do you have any advice for young people? Maybe you don't, but if you do, tell us.
Be adventurous. It makes such a difference in your life. My twin brother and I, my twin meant so much to me. We roamed and we were adventurous, and ever since I've been that way, and my children that way, because they got the spirit from me. And appreciate people. I've seen so many people who get all wrought up over other people. To me, everybody is valuable and interesting and to be enjoyed. And if there's something I don't like about them, I'm not going to burn up my energy being offended or being upset or anything. I don't have to dig into that, you know.
Away from it.
Well, no, I don't just accept the good part of it. Everybody has a good part.
Yeah.
They really do.
And look for it
I
and
love
appreciate
people.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we've gone through many years here, wonderful years, and
82. In January it'll be 83.
82. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's a long
Linton's 89.
It's a long.
But we're going. Well, you know, that was another thing. We really worked on nutrition, and I think it shows. You know, our health is good.
Your father lived to a
he was
very
almost 98.
active old age. Yes.
Yeah, he was
How about
almost
your
98.
mother?
Mother was, I forget, maybe 80, something like that.
So
yeah.
you do have some long. You do have a few genes.
Yeah, they
that
say
are,
you should pick your parents.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you for coming and visiting with us today, Valeska.
It's been
Thank
fun.
you very much. And we want to thank Mary Miller, who has been working the camera today.
A very pretty girl.
Yes, she's wonderful. She's wonderful on that camera. And so goodbye.